Hi, I'm Fayon Cottrell and I'm in the Borough of Lambeth. Today I've come down to a street in the Lambeth Borough to have a look around because obviously with the housing crisis a lot of families have been put in very awkward situations. Now if you can afford to buy your house outright in London, fair play to you, but that is the choice of few rather than the many. Now here in this street, a lot of people here are campaigning to keep their homes, and across Lambeth it's been that case since the sale of short life housing over the last few years. They've seen their houses demolished, sold on to developers, and still not really knowing what kind of money has been put aside for them to be rehoused. So I'm going to be speaking to Julian Hall, who is a member of Lambeth United Housing Cooperative, to find out all about what he's been doing in the fight to keep his home. So, Julian, can you tell me what can be done to address the housing crisis in London?
Yeah, the problem in London overall is that we don't have enough social housing, and it's not just a London problem, but it's very obviously sharpened in London. And the affordable housing is not affordable. It's 80% of market rent. It's a very misleading term. There's not enough social housing being built. What we need is 100% social housing on publicly owned land. We need councils to set better targets for social housing in new private developments, and to stick to those targets as well.
So what specifically is happening in the Lambeth Borough?
Well, in Lambeth there are examples where publicly owned land has only gained 40% of social housing when the target should have been higher, and the council's own targets are muddied because they're affordable / social housing targets. Well, that's not good enough. You need to be specific and have a specific social housing target for those very reasons explained about how affordable rents are actually very high rents and unaffordable to many people. So the targets that the council have set, for example, building 1,000 new council homes based on track record, it doesn't really seem very likely if they're not prepared to enforce certain targets and they don't build 100% public housing on public land. And the housing policy is in tatters at the moment because they're selling off things like the housing cooperatives, the long-standing housing cooperatives in Lambeth, which means they're selling off social housing, they're adding people to the waiting list, and they're not building new housing with any of the money they're getting from that. It also means that OAPs are being forced out of their homes and communities destroyed. So it's a particularly tawdry chapter in Lambeth's very poor relationship with housing management.
And what are you doing yourself to try and raise more awareness of this to Lambeth and the general public, of course?
Well, we've been fighting a very hard campaign on behalf of the housing cooperatives to raise awareness of what's going on and the vindictive evictions that are being taken against our members. So we've done all sorts of things, lots of support from our local MP, Kate Howie. We've involved her in photo opportunities, and locals like Vivienne Westwood who've been very supportive of us, and we're constantly lobbying MPs and councillors, and we've gone to the council on numerous occasions with a social housing plan to retain the stock of social housing, but we've been dismissed on every occasion. So the fact that Lambeth show no interest in retaining social housing is obviously very worrying.
I mean, you are right in the centre of a very affluent area of Clapham Old Town. Do you think the local residents have any sympathy for your cause?
Well, I think this is a historic problem in the sense that we're now sitting in the middle of what is very desirable sort of properties, but at the time they're very undesirable. Nobody wanted to live in them. The council compulsory purchase ordered them for very small amounts of money, and it was only because the people who were living in them sort of settled in them and started up the co-ops that these houses are still standing at all. So that you have to put it in its historic context. I think there is a lot of support locally for the long-standing community because many of our residents have worked in the local community and done other things, voluntary work or whatever it might be in the local community, so they're well known, especially when you're dealing with people who have been in their home since the 70s and actually are in their 70s.
So how do you feel this situation is going to end for you and the people in this local area? Do you think it's going to be positive?
It's hard to say. It's positive's not something that I associate with Lambeth at the moment, although there are many good things about the borough. Their management of housing and their relationship with long-term residents in this particular episode is not one of them, but we'll keep fighting as long and hard as we can to ensure that there is a fair outcome for these residents.
A big thank you to Julian Hall for giving me his time today to talk about the issues of housing going on here in Lambeth. Obviously, Julian doesn't know exactly what's going to be happening with this road or with the other short life properties in Lambeth, but we do wish all the residents the very best. So I thank you for watching. I'm Fayon Cottrell.